Hello, everybody. Welcome to PixelPlay Sidequests. Myself and Jin and Chris here with me. Kaylan, we recorded too late, so he had to take off for the night, but I have his lovely notes happy. I just want him to know that he loves each and every one of you and should obviously subscribe to this channel. Clearly. But we are here because our story recently came out on just how well Microsoft was doing in terms of its Game Pass. Like it's making apparently somewhere around the amount of like $230 million a month, which I don't know if that means like that's literally what they're pulling in profit. I assume so because that seems like the right number. But like that's pretty crazy to think just every month that's how much you're pulling in, and that's just from people subscribing to it. That's not even counting digital sales on their stores and such. So that's pretty cool. And we thought it'd be a great opportunity to be like, hey, we haven't actually done one of these kinds of videos before, so we're just going to give you a bunch of games that we think you should be playing on Game Pass as it stands right now. Now, keep in mind, as this is recorded, this is the 19th of September. It's obviously coming out, what's Friday from now? The 22nd. So whenever this comes out, this is what's on Game Pass at the time that we make this video. So we're sorry if there are games on here that aren't there anymore when you watch this thing, but you've been forewarned. But we're going to give you guys 8 games that we think are going to be games worth your time. Now, the obvious first one, it just came out recently. This is one of Kaylin's picks. Starfield, which is, well, shocking that Starfield is going to be on this list. But I mean, we're talking about, honestly, like, as someone who just finished it recently, it's Bethesda's best work in a long time. Probably since, in my opinion, Fallout 3, to be honest. I haven't been, like, fully into a Bethesda game for a long time. I've been like here and there. I guess, well, Skyrim and Fallout 3 are very close in the same vein there. But
Yeah,
like, I really haven't been fully attached in a long time to the point that they were on my shit list because everything they were doing was wrong to me. Like, and that's not, well, I guess that's not completely true. I mean, in terms of their like open world games, was there were on my shit list because it's not like I have a problem with Doom. Didn't have a problem with Wolfenstein. Well, New World aside, but or New Blood. What's no Young Blood? That's the one I was thinking of. The weird like open world one that they did. But anyways, I'm digressing
yeah.
about bad Bethesda games. I don't care. But Starfield is one of those games that like I thought at first I wasn't gonna like because you think there's just too much going on. There's all these planets. There's clearly not gonna be that much to do. And yeah, there's not a lot to do in terms of the planet exploration, but the combat's really damn good. And the atmosphere is really cool. And the story at times has some really good quest lines, and there's a lot going for it. Is it the best game of all time? No, it's not. Of course it isn't. It's definitely not. It might get a nomination this year. I think just on being it's the best Xbox game this year, but it's definitely not a game of the year winner. But it's definitely a game that for Game Pass, especially at the price point of what the subscription is, that is more than worth your time. You will get your money's worth and then some with the amount of time you can sink into that game. Let's see. Chris, you go with your next one, and then I'll lead in with my first choice.
All right, well, I'll keep going with a big hitter here then. It's not a new one, but I mean, it's only a couple years old. We've got Forza Horizon 5. For me, this was a game that kind of even changed around like my favorite games. This is currently my favorite game still. I think it's just such surprise. I'd played Forza Horizon 4, but there was just something about Forza Horizon 5. It obviously took the formula, put it in an even more elaborate, nice setting, a little bit of quality of life improvements, I'm sure, there. But really, it's the perfect type of game. Whether you like racing games or not, Forza Horizon 5 will be a lot of fun because it is just you drive around in cars, but it's not just doing races. You have a big open world map, which it's one of those times where it doesn't even feel like an open world map because you're in a car. So as you're driving around, it makes sense it's this big. If it wasn't, it would feel very confined for obviously the mode of transportation. But it's just a lot of fun. The music's fun. The very little bit of like the concept of it, it's a car festival and you're someone that's gone to the festival. There's fun big like blockbuster races where it's like you versus a jumbo jet or something like that. Then there's the typical races, then there's off-road races, then there's just stunts going off ramps. You earn cars. You get like every time you level up, you get like this little slot machine kind of thing where you can earn new stuff like outfits for your character or new cars yet again. There's a marketplace where you can sell cars and buy ones off of other people, but it's bright, it's fun, it's fast. The music that's playing in the background, you get to kind of choose which radio station, kind of like a Grand Theft Auto situation. And it's just honestly like such a fun time where you can just sit back, relax, and you can play for an hour and enjoy it. You can play for 10 hours and enjoy it. And it's something I keep going back to, even though I've completed what I set out to complete. So it is an addicting, fun experience that I suggest everybody play. So Forza Horizon 5.
Yeah, for sure. I've also spent a lot of time in that game. It's honestly the kind of game that you can just pop in for if you only have like a little bit of time. Like if you're like you got somewhere to go, but you don't have to go for another hour and you just need something to do. You can literally pop that game in for half an hour, drive around, do one or two races, and you'll be happy. Like it's a nice little thing to just casually do. Like I know there are people that obviously can play this for long periods of time, but it's to me, I think it's the best case of like I just need something to kill like an hour or two and then move on to the next thing kind of deal. It's a great game for that.
Oh, absolutely.
So my
What
first
else you
pick,
got?
I'm trying to pick with game, or I'm trying to pick games that are, off the board for most people. This is going to be the closest thing to not off the board for people, but is still for a lot of people. The Yakuza series, specifically Yakuza 0, because that's where you can is a great starting point. If you've never played a Yakuza game before, my God, you are missing out on some of the weirdest and yet some of the best games I have ever played. So if you miss the fact that, Grand Theft Auto really doesn't have anything else for the lack of like, I don't know, a century it feels like now with GTA 5 just being consistent, Yakuza can fill that void, especially because Saints Row also isn't what it used to be either. Yakuza's kind of filled the role that Saints Row is because it's sort of like GTA. Now there's not like guns and stuff you can play around with, but it's a beat 'em up game with sort of the GTA elements of being able to walk around in a city and there's all these little missions and there's other things to do. There's all these little side activities. Yakuza though does what I actually wish a lot more games would do and condense it to a smaller open world and also have a lot more emphasis on its side quests, its activities. Because, in my opinion, and I've said this so many times on the main podcast, Yakuza does side quests and mini games better than any game I have ever seen, and it's not even close. The amount of stuff that game has that is addictive, even games as simple as pool and darts, they do very, very well. There's games like there is a cabaret club sort of simulator that they have where it's like a hostess bar where you have like people that go in and they basically just want attention. So girls go in and they'll sit down with them, talk with them, and drink with them. And it's sort of like if you guys remember, oh my god, Diner Dash, like those kind of games where it's just you like keeping tables up. Even something as simple as that takes a lot of your time in. And then the story, the main story, is some of the most serious, like heavy stuff I've ever seen in a game. And then out of nowhere, if you go play the side stuff, it's some of the wackiest, silliest shit that I have also ever seen. So it's the kind of game that, like, if you need an absolute palate cleanser and then some, that game does it. And honestly, it's a game that has told stories so overly well in terms of how it goes on for multiple things. Because, I mean, the main series went for 7 games, and now they have now moved on to a new protagonist. They're still doing stuff with the original, but now it's branching off into another path, and they now have their Like a Dragon series that just started, which is also on Game Pass, which is a JRPG. So you actually have a couple options. You have the Yakuza series from 0 to 7, or 0 to 6, I should say, that are the beat 'em ups, and now they have the Like a Dragon series, which is the JRPG. So they have like a nice mix. And I do think that if you're looking for an open world experience, but you're not looking to have like this ridiculously big world where there's like a bunch of collection missions and all this stuff, if you want something a little bit different, and if you also just want something absolutely different to most things that you play, this is the game that I think is right up your alley to try.
Oh yeah, love that series.
And I mean, look,
Absolutely.
if what you really want is to be a badass punching the shit out of people who also has a chicken that acts as their business associate, yes, those are all things that are completely in sync with each other. You can do that. And that's Yakuza in a nutshell. But it is legitimately one of the best like put together games I've ever played, and I think it's a great, and 0 is like a perfect starting point. 0 is, in my opinion, its best game. So if there was ever a starting point, that's the one, because it's technically a prequel to the original game, works out perfectly. And they even have 1 and 2 completely remade, and then 3 to 5 are remastered, and then 6 finally caught up with next gen again. So you actually have a pretty good set of games you can go through there if you want to get completely lost. Kaylan's other choice, because obviously he just recently got an Xbox, so it's not like he has a master list. I mean, I could just say insert some Assassin's Creed game that's on Game Pass, and you could probably count his third pick. But he also brought up Arcade Paradise, which he talked about, I believe, on last week's episode when you weren't here, Chris. It's basically a game that's essentially like a arcade management game. And he said it was really, really cool because it's got a lot of nostalgia vibes to it. It's really good looking in terms of like that 80s 90s retro arcade feel. It's a very chill experience too, and there is like arcade machines that you can just play mini games on, so there is some cool stuff to go with that. And I still have to get around to trying that because it looks like something I could easily just pop in for an hour and just kind of mess around with. But it seems like a cool thing to do, and if you're a big retro person, you like the old arcade days, that's definitely something up your alley. Chris, what is your second suggestion?
Well, keeping with that theme of the slightly cozy game, I'm a big cozy gamer, and I figured I'd throw some of those or throw one in here just for anyone listening who might be into the cozy style games. There's one that was just recently added to Game Pass, so it's called Spiritfarer. It's actually something I'll admit I didn't play it on Game Pass because, like I said, it just got added there. But I played through this game in its entirety, and I will tell you that it is a fantastic, just heartwarming, cozy game to play. No combat, nothing like that. You're someone who lives in the afterlife, and your job is to basically help people finish up with what their final tasks are that they need to get done before they're willing to move on beyond the afterlife. To whatever I guess that comes next. And it's very interesting because when characters are in the afterlife, even just the art style, like everybody is they take on the form of an animal and stuff like that. So it's not just like people walking it around. It's like these very cool takes on certain animals and stuff like that. But they're actual people, and they're kind of people that either you knew or you just are meeting in the afterlife. And again, your role is just to help them finish what they've got to do. And then when they're done, you kind of take them off and send them off to where they go next. Very simple game, not quick. It's something, again, you would pick up, play for an hour, then put away and come back to it whenever you just feel like relaxing at the end of the night. I know with a lot of cozy games, people put on podcasts and stuff like that. The music and the sounds and stuff in this is just like so relaxing and everything. I do suggest this is something you just kind of play when you're feeling that cozy feeling, not when you want to have a game on in the background while you're doing something else. Just let this game kind of take you. Again, you're just going around, you're just helping out these people. There's no order to it. Like, you can meet a character and then you kind of know the first thing you should do to help them out, but you can completely ignore it and go and start helping somebody out because you have this ship that you carry everybody on, and that's kind of how you move around in the afterlife. And you actually get to design what's on the ship, build the rooms on it, where everybody gets to live, and then like areas they can eat and they can relax while they're still there. It's just such a nice, relaxing, cozy experience. And it's honestly, I have to admit, it's beautiful the way that it's made, because it's talking about obviously some serious kinds of things with unfinished business in the afterlife and stuff, but it's presented in such a way that it's still very comforting and very cozy, and again, very beautiful in the way it's presented. So cannot recommend that game enough. If I wasn't already done it, I would probably still be in there playing it now. I may even go back. Who knows?
Yeah, I guess this might as well be the cozy block because I'll pop in my one big cozy game for it. Well, I guess it's technically two, but obviously you start with the first. So Coffee Talk is a game that I have constantly brought up on the podcast. It is a game that to this day has sat with me and almost makes me wish I could open up an overnight coffee shop where only really cool people would come in and just talk shop with me and tell me stories. But we all know that at past 12 o'clock at night, that many people don't exist. They're always asleep at that point. But Coffee Talk 1, the original, and then Coffee Talk Episode 2, Hibiscus and Butterfly, are two amazing visual novel games that are on Game Pass currently. They are basically set in Seattle in a D&D like level world where there's elves and vampires and such like that. And you are a barista in a coffee shop where these people come in, talk about their life's problems, tell stories, and you have these weird like overarching little real life stories. People are making friends. Like, it's this nice little chill thing of like just relaxing, reading people's problems, and making them the odd cup of hot Jones that they need to get through the day. And then it's honestly like same to what you said with the music and Spirit Fair. It's the same deal. Like Coffee Talk, I was still to this day will listen to the soundtracks of, because they are perfect cleaning music. They're great for just helping yourself like relax and just get stuff done, because it's not too distracting that you suddenly want to stop and like vibe or sing to it. It's just background music, and it works out perfectly for that. And I think it's just one of those games that really showed me, and when Coffee Talk first came out, because I got curious just about the art style to begin with, and then when I finally played it, it showed me that honestly I need to be looking deeper into games that aren't traditionally what is considered AAA, because that was around the point that I started paying more attention to indie games, and that game was a big part of it. And if you're looking for something to kind of scratch that cozy itch, and if you're looking to something to try that you normally wouldn't, I think this is a great game to start with, because it's one that doesn't demand too much of your time, and it's very relatable. It's like there's going to be a story in there that you're going to relate to in some aspect, for sure. And there's a lot to take from that. And I think it's just a great game overall. And as a side note, it's really sad to know that the creator of it passed away not too long ago. So there's that added bit of like, man, like it sucks to know that somebody who puts so much hard work into something doesn't get to anymore because he's not on this mortal coil. The Spirit Fair shipped him off too. And it's also why I can't recommend it enough, because anything that we can do to help that company stay around, and I'm sure that they're helping out the family there too. So I always support that stuff whenever I can.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's and such a great example with the music and everything as you're talking about. That game is just perfect coziness. Perfect.
Well, we are now to our last two. So you and I have one more to go. Chris, what is your last one?
So mine's definitely going away from the cozy. This next game is the opposite of cozy, but it is incredible, and that is Plague Tale Requiem.
Yeah,
It is
that's a
the
bit away from
sequel.
cozy, and we're going into like get that the fuck away from me thing.
Yeah, extremely far away from cozy, but it's such a good series. This is the second in the series for the Plague Tale series, and this is not one of those sequels where I suggest to people like, oh, it doesn't matter if you've played the first. At least watch a story walkthrough of the first game if you're going to play the second one. I don't know if this first one is still on Game Pass. I don't believe it is, but the second one obviously is. That's where I played it, and I cannot suggest it enough. It's just such a beautiful story-driven game. Now, when I say beautiful, I don't mean like happy, pretty, whatever. Graphics do look amazing, but it is about two siblings in a plague. It's right there in the name. It's a plague tale. And it's just so interesting. Like, it's such a unique game. The gameplay is not, you have guns and shoot and normal action game. You have one character who basically is the little brother, and he's kind of just there, and you have to protect him. And then the main girl has it's not even a slingshot, because it takes place in like the 1600s in France during the actual time of the plague. But it's like a rock sling, like you fling it around and can
Yeah,
throw a
just
rock.
basically a sling.
Yeah, and you're very limited with ammo, and it's more used for puzzle elements where if there is fire, and this is not a spoiler, this is obviously just gameplay. If there are the rats around in the plague, you don't get to like attack enemies, but you can sling a rock at a lantern, the fire goes out, and the rats obviously would avoid fire, but now they're not going to, so the enemy standing near that fire now gets eaten by the rats. It's horrific. It is graphic, but the game itself is mostly puzzle driven and story driven. And let me tell you, both of them are done like 10 out of 10. Like, the story and the puzzle elements are fantastic. The graphics are beautiful for the setting. Obviously, again, it's very graphic and horrific, but the way they've done it, it looks very, very nice. The music is just very emotional and hard hitting. I cannot suggest the first and second game enough when it comes to Plague Tale. So definitely play the second one on Game Pass if you haven't played the first and you don't have a chance to. I just quickly watch a story walkthrough so you can at least see what happened in the first game, because this is a direct sequel. It's the same characters from the first game, just continuing their story. But highly, highly, highly suggest this game. It was contender for Game of the Year for me last year. So cannot recommend it enough.
Yeah, and my last game is going to be a JRPG, Lord knows I'm a big JRPG guy. There have been plenty that I have been able to play on Game Pass, and none of them have come close to what Chained Echoes has done, which is crazy because it is made by one person. So it's an incredible testament to just how much work was put into this game. It's very reminiscent of your classic Super Nintendo game. The graphics are definitely going to give you that sort of feeling. And what it does, like, it doesn't do like a lot crazily different that you would like. It's not like the story is, some complete game changer. It's not like the setting is some complete game changer. There's nothing that unique about it. I mean, there's some like alternate mechanics, like there's mech battles that come across later in the game that you can do that are a nice touch towards the later portions of the game. You do also play it in the early tutorial, so it's not a spoiler to say that there are mechs in this game. But what the system does, it's so unique to me, and it's probably one of my favorite battle systems ever because of what it does. They have this bar that's on the screen, and it starts you in just a regular, like, normal bar. And if you do abilities or attacks, it raises the bar. And if you get it into the green portion, then your special skills will cost half, I believe, and they do double damage, or 1.5. I can't remember what specifically the numbers are now, but it costs less and you deal a little bit more damage. But doing so can put you further into the bar. And if you get into the red portion, then your abilities, I believe they don't cost any more. They cost the same, but they don't do as much damage. And enemies can deal... Wait, now I'm mixing... I hope I'm not mixing stuff up here. I know the enemies will do way more damage to you. I can't remember if it's... don't think damage or anything gets reduced. It might just be that, if anything, I don't think the cost changes. That, like, this is the point where it's been long enough that I'm like sort of fuzzy on everything. But like, something gets affected to you a little bit. I'm pretty sure it's the damage is a little less, but the damage that gets hit to you is done way harder. Like, if you do this in a boss battle and you get in that red bar, you're in trouble. You will take copious amounts of damage. And it's the kind of, system that makes you actually think twice about what you do, because there is a skill generally that's highlighted that if you use that, it does lower the bar, or you can defend to lower the bar. So there are other ways to make it go down, because obviously you have to be able to make it go down somehow, or else you're screwed. But it gives you a little more to doing the battle system that isn't just fight, magic, defend, item. It's now, well, if I fight, I risk going too far over the edge, and then I'm going to take more damage in the next turn. But also, like, if I could use this ability and I'll be fine, but this ability that, it'll help my party, like it'll do some like stat upgrades. I want to attack though, but if I do this, I get upgrades and I lower the bar a little bit more. So you kind of like have to weigh what you're going to do. So I think it's just one of those games that like everything clicks for it perfectly. The setting is great. The characters are actually really well done. There's some really cool like secret characters you can find over the course of the game that are amazing, and some of them are super OP too and great. Others are not great, but one of them fires a gun and then has a pet cat that fight, or a pet dog that fights with them. So like, how can you hate it? So there are other situations like that. The story, I'm not going to say the story is the best of all JRPGs, but the story is good enough that it will put you through the game no problem. You won't get lost. You won't suddenly get disinterested. To me, what makes that game as amazing as it is it is so goddamn pretty. It is perfectly well balanced, and it's a game that like I can't, like, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, there's no like bugs, or like it's the kind of game that you're like, wow, one person made this and it isn't broken, it isn't jank. Because we see so many games out there that get put on the store that look reminiscent of Chained Echoes, where it has that like RPG Maker feel, and they end up being kind of clunky, disinteresting things. And this game is literally one of the best JRPGs I've ever played. So if that's like your jam, yeah, like if there's any JRPG you should be playing, I know Persona 5 Royal is on there. I know Yakuza Like a Dragon's on there. I'm sure there are a couple of Final Fantasies on there. No, you should be playing Chained Echoes first before anything else.
Concurred. I agree so much about that JRPG. It's
well,
just
actually,
perfection.
well, Sea of Stars is kind of a tough one, but right now I still put Chained Echoes above Sea of Stars. But look, just play both, okay?
Yeah, I feel like in the end they're going to be almost tied for me. But yeah, definitely go give Chained Echoes a go. Do it. Because also we don't know how long it'll be on Game Pass. It might disappear. Get on there.
Exactly. So
Go play it.
hopefully when you guys are watching this around the same time that this video comes out, you'll have a nice list to go to. I mean, some of the like Starfield's never going away. Let's not kid ourselves. But like there are a few games on there that they will go away soon. Some of them will be cheaper than others. Like Yakuza will be a little more expensive. I'm sure Chained Echoes or a Plague Tale or a or Arcade Paradise or games like most of these. That's why we try to pick also these lesser known ones, because the likelihood is that you may not have another chance to get on Game Pass anytime soon because they'll go away. But they're also games to at least put on your radar because they are going to be relatively affordable, you would think, down the line. So there are things to look at in the future, even if they aren't on Game Pass by the time that you get to this video. So we hope that we've found a couple of games for you that you might end up liking just as much as we did. I know that, Game Pass alone has made me suddenly experiment with so many more things that I never would have thought I'd get into. And good Lord, has been worth every single penny that I've paid for it. And yes, I say that as someone who can't pay with pennies anymore. But yeah, that is going to do it for this video. So check all those games out if you haven't already. And obviously, check out this channel for more content. So you should be subscribing to the channel and liking this video. Also, leave a comment of any games on Game Pass that you think are hidden gems that people haven't got around to. I mean, I could go on. We could probably do another list of these next week, and I could probably fit another 8 in there.
Easily.
So,
yeah.
We'll maybe come back to this somewhere down the line. Maybe we'll do this with PlayStation Extra at some point too, when there's another moment in the next couple of weeks where there's not a big story that we can go into. But for the time being, that's gonna do it. So, like I said, subscribe to the video or subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment below, and we will see you guys on the next side quest every Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, and then obviously on every episode of the Pixel Play podcast every Wednesdays at noon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye for now.